Hey, what's up, everyone? Well, I'm going to share a few thoughts on a 460 Smith&Wesson, but before I do that, I just want to tell you how this all came about. So, as you can tell, I have one of my favorite handguns in front of me. I have my Thompson Contender, awesome gun. This particular one's in 44 Magnum. So, there's a really large gun shop that's not far from me, and I like to go there for used handguns because they get a lot of handguns used. There's a pretty good turnover on their inventory, and they often have very good prices. So I went there looking for a Contender or a Thompson Center Encore. Unfortunately, I did not find a Thompson Center Encore because I kind of have a list of handguns that I kind of have on my to-buy list when I see them. Now, I went and I did see some Contender stuff. Notice I don't say Contender pistol. They had two Contender barrels. One, unfortunately, was in 22 LR, and I forget what the other one was, but it was a caliber I had no interest in. And they also had a Contender grip, and I believe they might have had a 4 in too, but they did not have a frame. So I really wasn't too interested. Now, in the past, I've gotten some great deals on buying Contenders with multiple barrels and scopes, and I've done quite well. So, kind of fast forward from there, and all of a sudden my eyes go to a Magnum Research big frame revolver, the BFR. Now those are pretty cool. That's another thing that's on my to buy list. And in addition to the Magnum Research BFR on my to buy list, is something chambered in 460 Smith&Wesson. So I got pretty excited because I saw the BFR, and I was thinking, is that the 460? I looked, and unfortunately, it was the 500 Smith&Wesson. Now, 5 or 10 years ago, I would have been pretty excited about the possibility of buying a BFR and 500 Smith&Wesson. Now, not so much, and here's why. A 500 Smith&Wesson shoots 500 Smith&Wesson. 460 Smith&Wesson shoots 460 Smith&Wesson. And 454 Casull, and 45 Colt, and 45 Schofield, if you can find that. So with the 500 Smith&Wesson, you can just shoot one caliber. 460 Smith&Wesson, you can shoot four calibers. Now, for most calibers, you have a certain range from, kind of a lightly loaded bullet to a pretty stout bullet, and that's pretty much true of every caliber. It's particularly true of 45 Colt that I find. I mean, you can buy a buffalo bore round that's like a pretty powerful round, but then you can buy the types used like in cowboy action that's pretty mild. And I got to tell you, that really intrigues me because sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes I want to shoot a more powerful round at the range. Maybe you want to shoot 44 Magnum or like some double tap 10 millimeter. Other times, I just want to shoot 22. Sometimes I like to take my 32. So, sometimes I'm in the mood for different things. A 500 Smith&Wesson doesn't really serve that very well because the least powerful 500 Smith&Wesson round is still pretty powerful, and the really powerful ones are really powerful. That's great some days. Other days, don't feel like it. The other thing is cost. I was checking out some of the prices of ammunition because, as you know, things kind of vary a bit. And the cheapest, the cheapest 500 Smith&Wesson rounds I found were about $250 a round. The cheapest 460 Smith&Wesson rounds I found were probably maybe around $1.80, $1.90 a round. Now that's not a huge difference, but don't forget, we're talking per round. So if you want to shoot a couple of boxes, you usually get 20 per box. You want to shoot a couple boxes, you're talking about maybe $10 or $12 a box. So you can have fun shooting your 500 Smith&Wesson Magnum or fun shooting your 460 Magnum, and you're saving probably, $10 or $20 shooting the 460 over the 500. Now, granted, there are some really, really expensive rounds for each one, and like I said, I'm showing you kind of like the lower end here. But I checked out some of the 454 Casull, because remember, you can shoot the 454 Casull in the 460, and I'm finding those are a lot of them are frequently $1.50 to $1.75 a round. So if you want to shoot 454 Casull, you still got a good powerful round to shoot there, and you're saving even more money. Or maybe you're shooting more for the same price, which is just as good in my book. But then let's take it down a little bit further. 45 Colt. You can get 45 Colt rounds sometimes for 70 or 80 cents a piece. Now think about that for a second. If you're shooting 500 Smith&Wesson, you really love your handgun, okay? You enjoy shooting it. I mean, you're able to shoot basically 3 rounds of 45 Colts for every round of 500 Smith&Wesson. Now I know some of you are saying, "Oh, that's it's a stupid round. It's not that powerful. It's old-fashioned," and yada yada yada. If you're saying that, then you're probably not familiar with some of the loadings. Go check out some of what Buffalo Bore offers, and I believe also, Underwood and Double Tap. They have some pretty powerful loadings for 45 Colt. So that's one of the things I love about the round is that it's kind of all over the place. It's a very mild round, and it can be a very powerful round, and it allows you to shoot that really cool handgun you bought more often. Because let's face it, you're spending $1,500 on a 500 Smith&Wesson or a 460 Smith&Wesson, so you're dropping a lot of cash on the gun, and then it costs a lot to take to the range. Now, I don't know, some of you might be members of clubs where you just pay so much per year, so it doesn't matter, if you're only at the range for a little while or not. Currently, I'm not a member of a club. I just pay a fee every time I go. So when I do pay that fee to go, I want to make sure that I bring a few handguns with me and enough ammunition to have fun for an hour or so, hour and a half. So, if I just go there with a $50 box of ammo where it's 20 rounds, and that's not really going to take up an hour and a half of shooting enjoyment for me. So I'll bring like 22 or 9mm or something. So that means I'm also probably not using that particular gun because I don't want to go and shoot 100 rounds of a handgun that's going to cost me $250 per trigger pull, because that's $250 on top of the range fee and the targets and all that good stuff. That's an expensive afternoon out. I'm kind of cheap. I think you know that by now. When I saw that revolver yesterday, it was $900, and I'm like, wow, that's great. It's a great price. Now, if you really want a 500 Smith&Wesson and a BFR revolver, I think it's a great price. But if it was a 460, I would have been pretty excited because that's something I could use frequently. Now, like I said, they're usually around $1,400, maybe, give or take. So $500 off, I'm telling you, that's a great price. And another thing I like to bring up, too, is if you buy like a Glock 17 used, you don't know how many rounds it's been through. You might be able to take an educated guess by looking at it for wear and tear, but you don't really know because that thing might have thousands and thousands of rounds through it because, for the longest time, 9mm was like 19 or 20 cents a round. People could afford to shoot them a lot. I don't think there are many 500 Smith&Wesson Magnums or 460 Smith&Wesson Magnums that have several thousand rounds through them. Those are people who have a lot of cash to spend, and I don't think there were that many of them. I'm sure there's a couple, but not that many. So when you buy a used gun, I know some people say they don't like used guns. I personally favor them. But if you buy a used, let's call it powerful revolver, you're getting something that's really pretty new because it probably doesn't have much wear and tear on it. It was probably in the safe, babied, and shot sparingly due to cost. So you're better off buying the used one, really, because, what do you want to do? Spend $1,400 on something that's never been fired, or $900 for something that might have had like 100 rounds through it, or 150 rounds? I personally would rather save the $500 and spend it on ammo. That's just me. So I did not end up picking up that revolver yesterday because, like I said, unfortunately, it was not a 460. But just a little something I wanted to share there because when I see some of these really cool 500 Smith&Wesson rounds, I can't bring myself to buy them. It's kind of like with the 50 Beowulf thing too. It's like a financial decision to try and shoot the 50 Beowulf. It's an awesome round. Don't get me wrong, but versus going to shoot a 223, which is probably a third to a quarter of the price sometimes, depending on the loadings you get. It's just, I don't know, I just don't like to feel like I have to make like a big financial decision to go to the range. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you're the type of person who uses it for as a hunting round or whatnot, I mean, then I guess it's pretty good because you're not going to use that many rounds if you go like handgun hunting. You don't need to, go hunting and bring, hundreds of rounds of ammunition with you. So, just a little something I want to bring up about why I really like the 460. Now, like I said, a 460 BFR, I would love to have a 460 BFR or a 460 Smith&Wesson revolver, of course. My absolute favorite, though, you probably guessed it, would be a Thompson Center Encore with a 460 barrel. That would be my ultimate. Unfortunately, I was stupid and I didn't buy a Thompson Center Encore frame when I had the chance to. I could have ended up buying them for like $380. That's how cheap they were. And you got the frame, the forend, and the grip. Stupid me didn't buy one. Then they also were selling them with 308 barrels for, I guess, around $750. And again, stupid me didn't buy one. It would have been great if I did. I probably could have sold the barrel on eBay and then used the proceeds plus a little more cash, and I could have picked up the 460 barrel, and I probably would have been into the thing for like $800, maybe 900. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed my pontificating about the 460. I really think it's one of the best rounds out there because it's got a little bit of everything for everyone, and no matter what mood you're in and where well it happens to be at the time, it's serviceable and just looks like a lot of fun to shoot. I've never actually shot a 460, but I'm very, very intrigued. All right, guys, have a good one. I will talk to you later.